Добрий день, я вітаю всіх.
Good afternoon. I welcome everyone who joined us. My name is Olga Tavanova, and I am happy to welcome you at Ukraine Media Center today. This is 964th days of full-scale invasion of Russian Federation, and today we are going to discuss a very important topic. We are going to talk about business in the time of war and the impact of new tax regulations on its operations. So today, distantly, we have Anna Derevyanko. She's an executive director of the European Business Association. Anna, hello. Hello, Olga. Well, on the 10th of October, Verkhovna Rada has supported the draft law, which is increasing taxes for businesses, and that draft law was supported by 247 MPs. So today, the most relevant question is how this law is going to impact the businesses, and may it cause businesses to go underground. Well, thank you for your question. We know that most businesses understand that army should work, and to do that, they need money in the budget. The only thing businesses do not understand, they do not understand why transparent and open businesses should pay taxes at first instances. Why do they don't work with those who are working underground in the shade to cover gaps in the budget? What we saw in the law, in fact, doesn't contain anything specific on combating the shade, combating the gaps in taxation and regulations which cause losses for the budget, because by estimates, this amount of the businesses working in the shade could be more than 540 billion hryvnias. So open business is not happy that they should be responsible in the first instance. Our studies demonstrate that military fee will be quite a significant barrier for the businesses, because 53% of companies plan to try in this or that way to pay that military fee from their own money. 33% is not going to handle that. They couldn't make it because, in fact, we see that the situation is quite difficult, because not business is going to pay taxes. People are going to pay them. And other taxes are going to cause increase in prices. So the customer will pay in any case for all that. When we talked about taxes and their increase, the only mainstream in our activity was the proposal to combat the shade. Another point was to introduce these economic ways to ensure the levy from military service, but that all are only discussions, and they could allow additional income to the budget. Well, so businesses are ready to increase taxes, right? But at the same time, they expect the state to introduce specific measures from the state, like this economic levy from military service. Well, if taxes will be equal for everyone, that will be okay, because if one part of businesses is paying them, the other part is not, that distorts the competence. And in the end of the day, some portion of the business is going to go into the shade because they won't be able to sustain the competition. So if taxes are introduced for some categories of societies that couldn't be perceived positively from open and transparent businesses. One more norm which is broadly discussed in the society and in our business, that some norms will start working retrospectively. So it's it causes a lot of concerns and discussions among businesses. What should they do with it? What businesses say regarding these norms, which are to become effective from the 1st of October 2024? Some MPs claim that it can be effective as of the average middle of the month and so on. Well, businesses do not understand how come that there are laws, there are specific provisions which are not enforced. So it's difficult to understand why actually lawmakers apply such measures. In this context, except for a negative perception, this situation is not going to bring anything more. Well, what should we expect for? It's difficult to say. Businesses already expressed their comments, their proposals, but not all the information is taken into account, is not heard, and it's very strange. Anna, could you please tell us what businesses are the most subjected to or have some kind of inclination to go into shade? Well, the major problems for the businesses as of today are mobilization, which cause lack of workforce in the market, and electricity energy, the power. Well, we see that additional tax regulations are adopted and no other measures are introduced that may stimulate transparent taxpayers to work in shade, and that would be the highest risk of this draft law or law already. So we also should recall that so-called economic book and this economic levy for mobilization should be introduced. Otherwise, we are going to drop down to that shade we all afraid of. I'd like to touch upon another question on trends in business. We understand that now we are reaching very harsh times. We understand that from one point of view there may be shellings, power outages, whatsoever. It might be difficult for all of us and for businesses as well. As of now, what challenges for businesses do you see? What do businesses face? What do they work with, and what should they overcome in existing situation? Well, first of all, I'd like to mention that from the very beginning of full-scale invasion, business operates in a very complicated conditions. As it started in February 2022, actually, from the beginning of full-scale invasion, the situation remains the same. Every new stage of full-scale invasion brings us new challenges which businesses should adapt to, but businesses remain optimistic regarding perspectives. And they are thinking how they can move forward, how they can optimize their processes, and majority of our members of European Business Association expect increasing their revenues in hryvnias. Comparing to the previous year, we have less optimism, but nevertheless, we still see this trend that people expect the growth. On the other hand, we see some decline or slowing down in terms of further development. At the beginning of 2024, we see that majority of businesses started working at their stable level of operation, but this process is slowing down. In summer, we already see less companies operating in full scale. As to SMEs, their situation is even worse. Only 1/3 of them are operating and full capacity. So the situation is different depending on geographical location of the business, where they shall or not, what is the sector of the business. Well, so it all depends on many factors. Nevertheless, businesses are quite optimistic that we should overcome all the challenges. We should go through this difficult path in order to become winners when the war is over and continue operating. But the challenges remain the same. At the first place, workforce, lack of workforce, and mobilization or draft into service problem. We hope that our state will hear us and will introduce economic grounds for Lviv from mobilization, because as we see, 86% of our companies have some critically important workers who are being mobilized. That might be one of the reasons why businesses might not be able to overcome the challenges they face. The second place among the problems is the access to the power supply, because all that strikes on energy system causes a lot of problems in energy supply. Yes, businesses found the way to ensure their sustainability and stability. However, that caused increase of their prices and some problems with their profitability. So these are two major issues. Of course, the question of ongoing war is another challenge for the business, and all that issues related to regulations and proper communication with the government, with the parliament, also is one of the concerns of businesses. Another question I'd like to discuss with you are the state programs for businesses. Are there any helpful programs among them, and how do you treat these tools? Should they exist, or maybe these 2 or 3 problems you've mentioned should be solved, and then majority of businesses are not going to have any need in using some specific governmental programs? Well, you're right. Our businesses are very creative. They're very strong and resilient. They can adapt to any conditions. If we'll compare the situation in the EU and in Ukraine, we'll see that number of programs for businesses in Ukraine is very small comparing to the number we see in the EU. In contrary, our businesses try to survive in these harsh conditions in any case. What businesses actually need? Well, they need from the state to eliminate distortions in the market, because if we see these distortions, it's very difficult for open and transparent businesses to win transparent competitions, because if there are companies which do not pay VAT, other fees and taxes, we understand that the prices between such companies and open and transparent companies would be huge, through 30 or even 50%. So task number 1 for the government and for the state in general should be improving the situation with this shade part of businesses. And yes, we should remember that workforce issue remains a challenge for all businesses. It's difficult to solve that problem in administrative field, but as to regulatory elements and measures which state could apply to help solving this issue, well, they could do that. It's not the first year we are discussing this economic, so to say, economic booking. In any case, we see that there is a trend for increasing taxes, and also We have some issues with the rule of law. We don't see any specific progress in this regard, but businesses expect from the state to do something with that. Well, other issues which are related to state funding with different programs, 579 program is working well. Some businesses use it, but nevertheless, the state is going to have much more money if all taxpayers are going to pay equal taxes and all will play at the equal conditions. So the state should create equal conditions, equal requirements for all businesses to be able to cover all the costs of army and to have some funds to stimulate businesses. Because without such steps, it's difficult to expect from the state that they will have money to implement any specific programs to support businesses. Well, if state creates some programs now, we understand that they do it for the money of transparent and open businesses, and not those who are working in the shade. Because those businesses working in the shade, they in fact do not finance such programs. So that's all from me about that. Well, you mentioned that many businesses claim that they are not able to pay the taxes at the level imposed in some percentages. How many businesses are going to transfer that to the final consumer? Well, it's difficult to provide any specific information about that because it will be very subjective. We don't have any specific data. I don't want to give wrongful information, but nevertheless, if businesses will be able to pay taxes and thanks to their revenue, they will be able to pay more to their staff and to decrease prices for final consumer, they would do that. If they won't be able to do that, opportunities, if there are no opportunities for the businesses to do that, they will transfer that to the shoulders of their workers and final consumers. It's difficult to say how many of them will do that. Maybe 1/3 or something like that. But it really depends on the level of profitability of the enterprise. Or maybe it will be a half or more than the half of businesses. But I don't have any insights on that, so I wouldn't claim a specific number. Do you plan, as the manager of European Business Association, to officially refer to our officials to revise some normative documents and to adopt some additional measures or steps so your side will be heard too? Well, I know that we are heard for 100%, and I am grateful to public authorities for that. They are open to listening to the business. However, it's also important not only to listen, but to take into account what is heard. We would like to see a dialogue and to be permanently in touch with different levels, and we are, but nevertheless we see that many our recommendations were not taken into account. They are not reflected in existing documents. So 5% of military tax was adopted, even despite we didn't recommend to adopt it. Nevertheless, we don't have all the information as businesses, as a society. We don't have all the information about real situations. So it would be good if public authorities would be more open with the society and businesses to have a clearer picture what is happening there. In my opinion, existing level of openness is not sufficient as of today, and we see that even some managers, well, like the president, we again would like to refer to him to organize a meeting with businesses, because we see that there is some vacuum in communication with the president and open and transparent businesses, because actually only open and transparent businesses give money to the budget. So we would like to see more open, without emotions, transparent dialogue with the public authorities, with the government, to discuss how we can solve all that problems we face today. That will help us to reach better understanding regarding all those decisions which are taken by public authorities. Well, I understand that it's difficult for our top officials. It's difficult in this context because they have to take difficult decisions every day. Nevertheless, should we have more transparency and openness, I believe that there would be more efficiency. But as to military tax and additional taxes, we might face negative consequences to higher extents than the parliament and the president expects to have. So the communication in this regard should be a very important leverage. We should learn how to communicate, not only through media, but also to communicate directly, transparently, openly, without emotions, and to support each other in this difficult situation, because the war is going to continue. At least we see that it's not going to over in the next future, in the future couple of months. Well, so we have to learn how to communicate in this condition. Thank you very much for this comment. I believe that this is really important. We all do understand that now all our forces are directed at our war at winning, and we should communicate about everything what is taking place, what is happening, because that would be a field for manipulation for the enemy. Thank you very much for joining in. I'd like to remind you that we had Anna Derevyanko, the director of the European Business Association, and at 12 o'clock we are going to have the next briefing. We are going to discuss with Denis Marchuk, deputy head of the All Ukrainian Agrarian Council. We are going to talk about harvesting and the situation in the agricultural sector. So thanks to our army, glory to Ukraine, and let's work for our victory.